I see that you write on Twitter that you call yourself the father of Master Chief.
I do. Well, I actually designed him from scratch. So the Master Chief himself, is a character I started fooling around with back in 1997 to start building him as we were creating Halo from the very beginning. It was just Jason and myself at Bungie working on Halo. And as the art director and then creative director of the entire franchise, it was my job to work on some of those iconic elements like the Master Chief and the Warthog and Pelican and that kind of stuff.
How did that name come about? How did that name come about?
For the Master Chief?
Yeah.
That was actually through some of the writing staff. Joe Staten, who was also critical in developing the Halo franchise. I'm pretty sure he was the one who named Master Chief the Master Chief in the first place. Yeah,
it's a funny name because I actually didn't think it was like a real grade in the military. I thought you just made it up because it sounded cool.
It was based around military rank and order, but we had to take some levity, of course, for the science and the fiction of it.
Yeah, cool. And how did the idea for Disintegration come about? Was it a gameplay idea or was it a story idea?
I actually started working on the fiction for this game, and initially, I started working on it about 6 years ago.
Oh, really?
The fiction for it was the one thing that got me most interested in just starting building a universe. And I actually started building the game as a real-time strategy game initially. Yeah. So you were just flying this camera over the ground and controlling units like you would in any other real-time strategy game. And it was cool, it was kind of fun, and we were excited about the prototype we made. But we realized that there are a million other games just like it out there, and that we would not be. It would be really difficult to shine amongst that crowd. So we wanted to do something completely different. I love first-person shooters, as you know. It's one of the things that I've built for a long time over my career, and so I wanted to take that camera in the sky, turn it into a vehicle we call a grav cycle, put the player in the seat of that grav cycle, and give them offensive and defensive weaponry, and then have them command those units on the ground in a really fluid first-person shooter mechanic way. That's how then we knew that we were onto something very unique and very different. And that's when we put a lot of love and energy into iteration and trying to solve these very difficult to solve gameplay mechanics. Yeah. But we got it to a point where we were pretty excited about it and started shopping that prototype around, and found a great relationship with Private Division.
Yeah, cool. Because I think I read that Halo was a real-time strategy game from the beginning as well.
Yeah. Oddly so, yes. I know, there's this weird way that we start games. I had started at Bungie working on Myth: The Fallen Lords, which is a real-time strategy game.
I love that
and
game.
Halo started off as just a sci-fi skin on top of that same engine. Yeah. So it had its similar roots, that's true. It wasn't planned that way, but it just kind of did, that's how it worked.
Yeah. Was this integration always both multiplayer and the story?
No, it wasn't. Disintegration was initially just a single-player story campaign. I love story, and I love telling great big stories within a game. But as we continued building it, and we brought on more staff, after we signed the deal with Private Division, and we're able to grow the studio, we were able to bring in a lot more talent. While we're only 30 people, we are 30 people of really high caliber. As a result, we have this ability to take on additional feature work and additional challenges with the game to add that multiplayer component, which is ridiculously fun. So I was in favor of it, and now that we knew that we could do it, it's now a major feature of the game. So I'd say between campaign and multiplayer, we're about a 50-50 mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Halo would have been as popular if you didn't have like really good multiplayer? Is it a
multiplayer is a thing that always gives a game legs beyond launch. Yeah. So it's the thing that players come back to and play as a hobby. Yeah. So it's essential, in my opinion, to a game's success. However, on the flip side of that, single player and the story are so critical to building a universe and a lore that makes the whole game believable in a way that if you just a multiplayer game only, there's so many things that just don't make sense about that game in that world that it's a travesty, in my opinion, that some games that are multiplayer only don't have that, or try to make it up through other things. Whereas the story that we're building and the universe that we're building that you can actually play through, it's a kind of place where we want the player to, like, after they're done playing, just kind of like dream about it. You know, it's a really cool place to be, and it's a really neat environment to be in that you can only imagine what else is happening beyond.
Yeah. Well, what's the idea with like transferring people's minds to robots? Was that the first idea that built everything, or was there? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the critical elements of the game is the humanity, the aspect of it. Yeah. I wanted to make sure that in this potential future where humans are on the brink of extinction, that one of the means to survive is actually taking the human brain out and surgically implanting it in a robotic armature, allowing them to survive long enough to come up with solutions for what's the threats that are a problem for us, and ultimately to one day become human again and reintegrate back into human form. That's the goal for our characters. It's the reason that they are human in nature and have their own personalities and own unique aspects to them. Yeah. They're not genetically modified super soldiers like the Master Chief. They're normal people like you and me. They're artists, they're designers, they're journalists, and they're actually interesting people from all walks of life, and they have an interesting chemistry together as a team. We follow, in our single-player campaign, a group of these people who have been integrated but have been ostracized because they are now they're battling against what has evolved as a really horrible threat to the rest of humanity. Some of these integrated have formed a terrible unifying and military force called the Rayon, and they are devastating what's left of humanity as well. So we're fighting as a small band around a much larger global conflict against this enemy.
Is that based on like the current fears in how AI is evolving, or?
It is absolutely a observation of the world around us and an allegory as to what could happen if we allow the reliance on technology that we have, allow that to continue to permeate our lives. Also, if we ignore the world around us and what's happening to it, and what's going to happen if the world starts to fight back against us. So that's the kind of it's taking these potential logical conclusions to an extreme endpoint and illustrating what might happen. So it's a warning sign more than anything else. And it's but it's to take that universe and turn that into a reality then.
Yeah. Well, how are they gonna get human again? Do they like save the bodies?
They clone the bodies back.
Okay. Yeah.
So they clone the bodies back and bring retransplant their brain, which in the robotic armature is preserved in a armored thing we call a brain can. And that it can be the thing that's neat about that is the brain can actually live. The real person inside there can live for 150 to 300 years, depending upon when they were integrated. So some of our characters are pretty old and have been around for a long time, but they still, their goals are to save what's left of humanity, to find family and loved ones that are still out there as human naturals in the world before they are captured by the Rayon forces.
Yeah.
We just got time for one more.
Okay, last. You spoke quite candidly about like the Halo series going that there had been too many sequels, that it was a no-win situation. Is there a...
That was a famous quote taken out of context, but yes.
Okay, tell me about the context.
It's true. I did say that because I understand from a developer standpoint how difficult it is to build a game that satisfies the masses.
Yeah. But the
once
hardcore on the new ones.
Once a game goes through certain iterations and it becomes a franchise that has gone through several different releases, it's very, very difficult to provide something new that gives the fans really something new to sink their teeth into and have fun with, but not change it too much. Otherwise, they're disenfranchised from what you've done because they say it's no longer the game that they love. So it becomes a very fine-edged sword, and it's a very difficult challenge to solve. And that's where my heart goes out to my friends at 343 who are still building Halo, and have that challenge in front of them because it's a lot of work. But I think they'll be able to pull something out that's really cool.
So a new game in Fallen Lords that would be impossible?
I don't know. Take-Two owns the franchise. The foundations for it, I love Myth of Fallen Lords. It was a fantastic game. And I really love the fact that we're bringing some of those real-time tactical elements into Disintegration and making that part of the core mechanics of our game.